because I feel strongly about this issue, I have a responsibility to be talking about it and to be drawing attention to it. And this sort of idea that, well, if I wasn't doing it, then nobody else would be. So yes, you know, if our organisations weren't working on women's rights, then who would be? Which may be a fair point. Another quite common motivating factor was also people who previously worked for the state, so they'd been civil servants or they'd worked as social workers, for instance, or in education. And many people voiced a lot of frustration at that experience. They'd got frustrated at the level of bureaucracy. They felt they had no room for personal development, and they saw that the NGO sector as somewhere where they could use their initiative, where they could be more creative, and also where they could have more direct social impact, which was something they felt that they weren't able to do in working for the state. And then this last slide on motivations, which I call nowhere else to go, which sounds rather negative. For this particular respondent, on the one hand, she felt that she didn't really have anywhere else to go because, as she said, it's very difficult for people who are open about their HIV status to find work elsewhere. They face a lot of prejudice, discrimination. But it was also the way she was talking about it. It was also that having come to this organisation, she felt that she'd sort of found her place and her mission, and it was more that she couldn't imagine working anywhere else because she couldn't imagine finding any other kind of work that would be as fulfilling, as important to her. So it's sort of a bit of both, really. Okay, wider connections. In involvement in and sort of being part of transnational activist movements and networks was identified as something that was particularly important again for people involved in more alternative groups, many of whom had, particularly when they first started, had been in a position where they'd been virtually invisible within Kyrgyzstan itself, and had faced a lot of hostility, and sort of being integrated into these wider international networks was a real source of moral support. As this quotation indicates, really I can say that the international networks that we work with are ready to work with us, because here in Bishkek we feel really on our own. We really feel on our own. So this is quite a new organisation. They've only been running for a few years, and so they're clearly still being a part of something wider is clearly important to them. But also on an individual level. Some of my respondents have talked of how being part of wider networks and taking part in international and regional events has made them feel part of something much bigger, and they found that sort of quite empowering. But it's also meant they felt exposed to new ideas, to new perspectives, which have then gone back to influence their work and their ideas on what they're doing and why they're doing it. And then, finally, this is someone who works for an international NGO, and she talked a lot about how working for this organisation had a huge influence on the way she saw her own society and her own community. Working in it really changed me a lot. It's really helped me to look at our culture, because before, you just live with it. You don't even think about it. I really thought a lot about Kyrgyz culture, and I think a lot of gender problems are rooted in culture. The trouble for this particular respondent is this had resulted in a considerable degree of internal conflict for her, because she felt really pulled between her workplace and the sort of the values that she to a considerable degree agreed with, that she was exposed to through her work for this American organisation, international organisation. But at the same time, she knew that sort of just trying to sort of spread those ideas to people within the people that she came into contact with within Kyrgyz society would not work, basically, and she was very conflicted. And that's basically what she talked about the entire interview. So yes, in terms of completing my research project, this is what I think I need to do. I think I need to do more interviews with people working in mainstream women's organisations. I need to do interviews with more representatives of this older generation of women leaders, and also with donor and representatives from donor and international organisations to try and work out what they think they're doing, supporting women's rights organisations here and what they think it's trying to achieve. And then also one of my research respondents said that she thought I should also be interviewing people working in state apparatuses working on gender. And there you go. That's it. Thanks very much.
Well, now if you have any questions or comments on the topic, please.
How do you contribute theoretically to the literature? Because for me it wasn't clear here. Like, what are you bringing new? I mean, you're doing all these interviews, and I just don't understand what is it are you really doing, you know? I mean, I don't want to sound too strict or anything, but I don't. What's the take-home message? Like, what should we remember when we leave the room here? You know?
No, that's a very good question, and I think that's.
I mean, you're asking your participants to take a lot of their own time to talk to you. You yourself spend a lot of time, I don't know, a year or two or even more on that research. So all this time, all these resources, you're coming here to Kyrgyzstan to do this, you know, like, what's the theoretical foundation of doing all this work?
No, I really wish there wasn't a video camera pointed at me, because
I mean, there must be something there.
Well, it's also possible to develop theory out of
But
your
you
work.
can say it, yeah. You want to build a theory from these interviews?
No, I don't think I have any illusions about building theory from these interviews.
Okay. Because obviously it's a very important topic, an interesting topic, right? I mean, yes, it is, and your participants, they say interesting things too. But I would like to go out of this room, and I've learned something. And I want you to tell me what's the most important thing in your research that I should remember about.
I'm really sorry, but at the moment I don't think I can answer that question. I mean, I guess I can tell you. I think because when I've, as I said, this project has changed an awful lot from what I thought it was originally going to look at. So when, in terms of sort of writing my initial research.